Bearded dragons can be really picky, and a lot of them have an attitude. Good morning, reptilians. Welcome back to my channel. So some of the biggest questions that I get asked always has to do with bearded dragons and eating. Not only do bearded dragons have a huge attitude a lot of the times, but they can be super picky, and they require a varied diet. So all of that added together often can cause concern for new bearded dragon owners. And because a lot goes into bearded dragon diets, I figured it was best just to kind of compile everything into a video. The most important thing first is safe foods. Not all foods are going to be safe for your bearded dragon. I will provide a link in the description of a list that I always use. I used it when I first got Zaz. It is an amazing list of all of the different fruits and vegetables that are safe for your bearded dragon. And not only that, but it shows you if the vegetable has to be cooked, if it has to be chopped up into little pieces. It gives you all of that information. So I will put that in the description for you guys. Just a quick, very huge tip though, never feed your dragon bugs from outside. Crickets and things like that you find outside could have come into contact with pesticides, and that is not something that your bearded dragon can ingest. And some bugs can actually be deadly to your bearded dragons. Lightning bugs are a big one, which was really shocking when I first got Zaz. I didn't know that. Lightning bugs can kill your bearded dragon. Another thing that you're going to need to avoid are pelleted diets or pre-made bearded dragon diets. Repashy does make a microwavable gelatin bearded dragon diet that they love, and you can feed that occasionally just to mix in with the varied amounts of diet. And you're also going to want to make sure to avoid any kind of bugs that are already dead, because they have nowhere near the amount of nutrients in it that live bugs and fresh fruits and vegetables are gonna have. But just a quick list of staple foods. Staple vegetables will include things like collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, any kind of the leafy greens. You want to avoid things like spinach and kale, as they can bind calcium, and calcium is very important for your bearded dragon. You also can do things like squashes, butternut squash, yellow squash, acorn squash, spaghetti squash. Zaz absolutely loves butternut squash and actually fed her yellow squash for the first time today, and she really enjoyed it. So things like that are all good, and I always find it best to just prepare it in a big salad every day, and that allows your bearded dragon to kind of pick at what they want, and it just helps providing that variety. Also, you can occasionally give your bearded dragon fruits, and that is all on that list as well. Just make sure that's not something you overdo, because fruits are high in sugar and it could lead to obesity in your bearded dragon. As far as staple bugs, crickets, dubia roaches, and superworms, only for adults, are three of the biggest staple bugs that people use. The reason that people use things like crickets and superworms are because they are super convenient, and literally any pet store you go to is going to have crickets. I don't like crickets. I've said this in multiple videos. My very first bearded dragon video, I fed her crickets, and then I learned about dubia roaches, and I have not gone back. Crickets are gross. Not only do they have the possibility of carrying parasites, keeping them alive always proves to be so difficult. Every time I would use the huge bin enclosures for my crickets, they would be wiped out in a couple weeks. They stink. They're not as healthy as dubia roaches. Crickets only actually have about 15% protein, where dubia roaches have about 24%. And dubia roaches are going to be so much more filling to your bearded dragon than crickets. Where an adult bearded dragon may get full off 20 to 30 crickets in one sitting, it usually only takes about 4 or 5 large dubia roaches to fill up that same adult. So dubia roaches are cleaner. They are so much easier to keep alive. I have had maybe 4 dubia roaches die ever. They also are easier to handle than crickets, so crickets escape, and I have never had a dubia roach escape. So really the only thing that crickets have over dubia roaches is that crickets are easier to find. Now this obviously doesn't apply if you live in places like Florida where dubia roaches are illegal, but I often get asked about switching to dubia and people don't know where to find them, and excitingly enough, I have partnered with thedubiadude.com to bring you roaches right to your door. The Dubia Dude's website is super easy to navigate and order from, and it gets shipped right to your door. You don't have to go out trying to find these roaches. They just come to your house. Not only that, but he is eco-friendly and environmentally cautious. He reduces, he reuses, and he repurposes as many things as he possibly can. And he feeds his roaches all organic, which is so cool because that means that you know you are getting healthy, gut-loaded bugs for your bearded dragon. He's not a big business. What that means for you is he cares about you and he cares about your animal. If you've ever done business with a big business, your emails and phone calls can easily get lost, but with him, he cares about customer service. I will leave his link in the description below, and also you can use code L for 10% off your entire order now through the end of June. Thank you so much to the Doobie Dude for sponsoring this video. Now that we've talked about staple foods for our dragons, let's move on to talking about feeding your baby versus feeding an adult, because they have vastly different food needs. Baby dragons are actually going to need 70 to 80% of their daily diet to be bugs. That's a lot. And while baby dragons look tiny, they eat a lot. You're going to need to feed them 2 to 3 times a day, and you just give them as much as they can eat in about 10 to 15 minutes. I recommend putting them in a feeding bin. That way you don't worry about bugs escaping into the tank, because you do need to remove any uneaten bugs. But if you go to like Walmart or Target or whatever and get a big Sterilite bin, it's perfect for just throwing the baby in there and throwing a bunch of bugs, and they will go to town. Doing it this way also makes it easier to dust the feeders. For babies, you're going to want to make sure to dust with a calcium plus D3 supplement 5 times a week, and with a multivitamin supplement 2 times a week. And that bin makes it so much easier because you can throw the bugs in, you can throw some powder in and just kind of shake the bin up, and then they're dusted, and you just throw the baby in and you are good to go. These are the 2 supplements that I use. This is a Repticalcium with D3 from Zoomed, and this is Herptivite, which is the vitamin supplement. And those are the ones that I've always used, and I like them. They work out great and they last forever. Just so you know about how much these babies will eat, when Zaz was a baby, I didn't have access to dubia roaches, so I'm not sure how many of those she ate, but I do know that she would eat about 100 crickets a day, anywhere from 80 to 100 crickets every single day, which gets very expensive, and that's where I was talking about those crickets smelling terrible and dying so fast, because I had a huge Sterilite bin, lots of ventilation, lots of hiding spaces, and they would die so fast. I was literally ordering 1,000 count crickets every 2 weeks to a month, and it just wasn't fun. But if you go the route of dubia roaches, they're going to live a lot longer, and like I said, you're going to have to feed them a lot less because they have more protein and they're more filling. And while they only are going to eat a little bit of salad, and sometimes they won't even touch their salad as babies, you are going to want to go ahead and give them a small fresh salad every single day, just to kind of get them into eating those vegetables, and they will eventually, hopefully, transition themselves into eating more and more vegetables. So as your bearded dragon becomes an adult, it's going to switch from 80% bugs to 80% vegetables. That means that you're going to want to provide them with a very large salad every single day. Like I said, I like to put multiple things in those salads. That way, if she's feeling picky, which she very often is, she can pick through and get the pieces that she wants. And that makes it less of a guessing game for me to worry about what she feels like eating. And then you're going to want to offer them bugs every day. But like I said, the amount of bugs that they're going to consume should have decreased drastically. So they're only going to eat once a day, and they'll eat about 20 to 30 large crickets, or Zaz will eat about 5 large dubia roaches at most. Sometimes she goes on feeding strikes and will only eat hornworms, and when that happens, she only eats 2 large hornworms. We just don't want to feed hornworms as a staple because they are not the healthiest. But while they still need bugs, that bug intake decreases significantly as adults. And don't be surprised if sometimes your adult bearded dragon refuses bugs. Zaz will not eat bugs every day. I always make sure to offer her bugs every day, but sometimes she just eats her whole salad and she's satisfied for the day, and that's okay. As long as they are eating bugs most of the week, if they refuse them for a day or 2, that's okay. And the other thing that's going to decrease significantly is dusting their food. As an adult, you're only going to dust their food with calcium plus D3 about 3 times a week, and vitamin powder about once a week. And with some bugs, it's kind of harder for those powders to stick to them. They stick best to crickets, but other bugs kind of have a little bit of an issue. So because of that, occasionally I'll dust calcium powder on top of her salad as well. That way, just making sure she is getting enough calcium. On to gut loading. This is very important. I did an entire video on gut loading, but we are going to touch on that briefly because that is a very large part of feeding your bearded dragon. Gut loading is basically feeding your feeders. You have to make sure that your feeders are eating and that they're healthy and that they're hydrated, because your dragon is going to get all of its nutrients from your bugs eating food. Basically what you are going to want to do is take some kind of sterilite tub, and depending on what the feeder is, depends on how you have to set those up. Again, I did a whole video on that where I touched on crickets, dubia roaches, mealworms and superworms, all of that. I will put a card around here somewhere so you can watch that if you need more information on gut loading. But yeah, you're just gonna take a sterilite tub, make sure that there is plenty of ventilation for those bugs, and feed them. The biggest thing you can do is fresh vegetables. Feed them the same thing that you want your bearded dragon to eat. I also do the cricket calcium powder. They absolutely love that. And I have a huge jar of bearded dragon pellets that I will also use because they have a bunch of vitamins and stuff for bearded dragons in it, and the dubia roaches destroy those bearded dragon pellets. You also need to provide them with water because your bearded dragon is going to get a lot of their moisture from those bugs. And to do that, I just take a lid, a milk cap, or the little Rapashi gecko lids, and I just wet a napkin and stick it in there and they're good to go. If you're doing crickets, you have to have some kind of napkin or surface or something in there because the crickets will jump into their water dish and drown themselves. So you have to have some way for them to get out. On to water. Bearded dragons are kind of weird in this aspect because they, most of the time, will not drink from a standing water dish. For a very long time, I did not have a water bowl in Zaz's tank because I know that she wouldn't drink from it. I highly recommend you putting a water dish in your bearded dragon's tank because a lot of them will drink from it, or they will at least sit in it. She wouldn't do any of that, so for a long time I didn't have one in hers, but I would make sure that you know 100% for sure that your bearded dragon isn't going to consume that water before you decide not to put one in there. The best things to do would be to buy a small fountain to go in there because the trickling of the water, they can then see it, or to use a bubbler, which we are experimenting in her tank with using the bubbler. So far, it hasn't been great. She still won't drink out of it. She still won't lay in it, but we are testing to see if maybe she will use that. Other ways to hydrate your dragon are going to be giving them baths. That's one of the biggest ways that I hydrate Zaz. You're gonna wanna make sure that you're just letting them soak in the tub. You can also use like a scrub brush if you wanna actually bathe them. A lot of times when you give them a bath, they'll do this really cool thing where they will actually dunk their whole head under the water, or they'll just drink it, or they'll just lay there. But even if they're laying there, they are still intaking water. They're still getting hydrated. Also, a huge help is spraying their veggies. Just spray down their salad before you give it to them, and when they eat that salad, they're gonna intake that water. Whatever water you use, just make sure to treat it with ReptiSafe. ReptiSafe is gonna take out the chlorine, the chloramides, the ammonia, and it's gonna add calcium to the water and just make it overall better for your dragon. And if your bearded dragon is refusing to drink water, it's okay, don't panic. Bearded dragons take in a lot of their water from the bugs that they eat and from the vegetables that they're eating, and that's why it is super important to make sure that you are gut loading those bugs, giving those bugs water, and giving them fresh vegetables every single day. On to the last section of this complete feeding guide is what if your bearded dragon refuses to eat? Now, this is in no way meant to stand in or replace any advice that you receive from your veterinarian, but these are some things that you can try. If you feel like anything is wrong, if your bearded dragon is losing a lot of weight, if they look sick, please get them to a veterinarian so that they can do the proper test and make sure that they are okay. If it is vegetables that your bearded dragon won't eat, one thing that works for a lot of people is bee pollen. Bearded dragons love bee pollen. You can get it from any pharmacy or anywhere in the pharmacy aisle of a store, and it will come in powder form or it'll come in pill forms that you just open up and sprinkle the powder onto the food. And a lot of dragons will go crazy for it and they will start eating their vegetables. You can also try things like dandelion greens. For some reason, bearded dragons love dandelion greens, and that's one of the things that a lot of people will do if their bearded dragon is refusing to eat a lot of other vegetables, is they will get dandelion greens, and I have heard a lot of really good things about them, and it seems like it makes a lot of bearded dragons excited to eat their salads. Also, try changing it up. Like I said at the beginning of this video, bearded dragons have attitude and they can be picky. If you are feeding them the exact same thing every single day over and over and over, and you're never throwing in any treats or any new food, any new vegetables, anything like that, then they're gonna get bored and they may stop eating what you're giving them. When that happens, you can try things like hornworms and waxworms. Waxworms are super fatty, so be careful with those, but bearded dragons love them. And just try something else from that huge list of vegetables, and a lot of times they'll be happy to eat it. This one may seem strange, but along with changing up what what they're eating, change up where they're eating. Sometimes Zaz gets tired of eating in this tank and I'll put her on the couch and she will gobble up some bugs. I don't know why. I think it just goes with that whole attitude thing, but take them out, let them run around. If it's safe, if you have cats or dogs or anything that's going to be harmful for your bearded dragon, don't take them out, don't let them run around. But if you can, do that, put them in front of a window, and for some reason that works often with Zaz. If you just brought your bearded dragon home, or if you recently redid your dragon's tank, they might not eat for a few days or even a week, and that's okay too. Stress causes a lot of animals not to want to eat, and any kind of environmental change like that, especially one as big as you just brought them home, could easily cause them not to want to eat. So if that happened, it's probably okay. But again, if this has been going on for a very long time, and if you notice that your bearded dragon is losing weight, definitely take them to the vet. Bearded dragons are prone to getting parasites, so make sure to get them in so they can do a fecal exam and test them for parasites. And if that's the case, they need to be treated for parasites. Don't let this replace vet advice, please. And that's it. That should be just about everything. Like I said, I get this question a lot, and instead of writing all of this out every single time, I just decided to go ahead and just put it in a video format so that you guys will have it in a video format, especially if you are getting your first bearded dragon. Thank you so much again to the Dubias for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out his links in the description below. And if you head on over to his Instagram now, he's actually doing a giveaway in honor of him reaching 1,000 followers, and you can go ahead and enter that as well. I think it goes through June the 2nd. And if you're not already, feel free to follow me on my other socials and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every single time I put out a new video, which is every Sunday and Wednesday. Thank you so much to Exotic Dakota for following me on Instagram, going through and liking a whole bunch of my stuff. You are the bee's knees. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. And with a multivitamin supplement, and with a multivitamin supplement.